Commissioner Goldberg,
Yes, here.
Commissioner Peters,
Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Present.
Mayor Moore,
Present.
Town Manager Labadie,
Present.
and Town Attorney Rubin.
Present.
We could all please rise for the pledge.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any changes to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would like to move under consent agenda. I'd like to move B to new business because we have not heard anything about this before it appears here. So I'd like to move it to new business and put it A1, so put it above A, discuss it before A.
So item B, I think, the building official is going to present that item too. Should we present it between so after canvassing board and before item B, since, Jeff will be presenting both, does that make sense?
Sure,
Should I do
that's
that?
fine.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, I just wanted off the consent. agenda.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes total sense. Okay. And then the other thing I'd like to mention is presentations, proclamations. We have a presentation today by Wendy Sartori Link, and she'll be joining via Zoom at some point within the next 30 minutes. And so I don't think we're going to have a formal change to the agenda, but we'll just, when she joins, we will do her presentation.
So just for clarification, the item that's moved from the consent agenda, 9B, we're moving that under new business, and that's gonna be 9C? Or are you gonna move it?
So new business, I think, is item 11, is that correct?
Yeah, excuse me, 11.
So I guess I was thinking, because you wanted it before item B, or do you care maybe after item B? We can make it C, but that might be a little easier.
Yeah, I don't think it makes a difference.
So I think that's easier, so we don't have to move item B. So leave items A and B under new business the same, and then just move this consent agenda item B, move that to 11C.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we accept the agenda as modified. Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we will move on to item B of the presentations and proclamations. It's a resolution number 2023-018. It's a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach recognizing the late Honorable Mayor Bernard Featherman for having served with distinction as Commissioner of the Town of Highland Beach from March 11th, 2011 through March 23rd, 2017. And Mr. Featherman, he's been a resident of the Town of Highland Beach for 14 years. And Mr. Featherman was elected to the office of Mayor Commissioner on March 8th, 2011, and he served 2 terms. And we, the members of the Town Commission of Town of Highland Beach, staff, employees, and residents, we express our deepest sympathy and condolences to the family of the late Bernard Featherman. And now be it resolved by the Town Commission of Highland Beach that Bernard Featherman, Mayor of the Town of Highland Beach, is hereby recognized for his dedication and outstanding service to the entire Highland Beach community. I unfortunately never had the pleasure of meeting him, but my understanding is he was an excellent mayor and served our town very well. And I don't know if anyone else has any comments.
No, he was a nice man. I met him on several occasions and he was just a true gentleman.
Yeah, I didn't know him either, but I read a nice article that Rich did in the Coastal News about him and learned a lot. But like his son, he said that he retired 5 times and that one of his biggest, his 5th most and proud things he was is being mayor here. So I want to send regards to the family. Yes.
And similarly, I concur. I didn't know the mayor, but I've heard such wonderful things and have read wonderful commentary about his life and his family. So my best to his family.
A real gentleman. He was also an officer of the BCA. Had the honor of being at his 50th wedding anniversary with his wife, who passed a number of years ago, and really nice folks.
Okay, so may we have, this requires a motion, correct? May we have a motion for the resolution?
I move that we accept resolution number 2023-018.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Are there any public comments? Okay. Given no public comments, we move on to announcements. Board vacancies, Board of Adjustment and Appeals. We have 2 vacancies, all for 3-year terms. And we have 1 vacancy for an unexpired term ending September of 2024. Our upcoming meetings and events, August 15th, 2023. That's today, that we have our meeting today at 1:30. The next meeting is August 24th. We have a special meeting today, in August 24th at 1:30. August 30th at 11 a.m. We have the Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board regular meeting. September 5th, we have the Town Commission regular meeting at 1:30. And then on the same day, September 5th at 5:01 p.m., we have our Town Commission first public hearing budget meeting. There are no budget board action reports. Item 8, ordinances. There are no ordinances to be discussed. Under the consent agenda, we have the approval of the minutes of the August 1st, 2023. Any discussion needed? If not,
Yeah, I move we accept the minutes as written.
Second.
all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to unfinished business, item 10, the fire rescue implementation update.
So the fire team in concert with HR are currently interviewing captains as we speak. This is day 2 of those interviews. Those are going quite well. Again, as Chief had indicated, we've done quite well with the 11 candidates that are currently in the process, which will conclude the first round today. On the other side of the hiring process, we have 38 applicants for firefighter paramedic. 33 have met and passed all the elements, and firefighter driver 11 have passed all the elements. So it appears we're doing well with recruitment and should have adequate applicants to fill the positions that we have available with the department. We applied for our what we call the FDID, which is the Federal Department Identification Number. The key to that is that it becomes, I guess, official that we're a fire department. We already have the rescue side through the county, but this would allow us to start seeking grants and safer grants, things of that nature, other type of fire rescue grants. In the Florida State Fire Marshal's office, which is the Honorable Jimmy Petronis, who's with our commissioner today, doing something, I can't remember the event, but they're at an event. So I said, make sure he doesn't forget Highland Beach. So when that number comes through, we will go right through the process. Again, they're working through policies and procedures and plans. That being the Cooper response plan that we have to, contingency of operations plan. So we're working through those now. Chief Joseph has 2 drafts of that plan, and then there's like a Kemp plan. I'm still working. Again, in my office, I'm going to put up this wall. And it's going to be called the acronym wall, right? So everybody gets to come in and write acronyms down so we can keep track of all these. But those are basically our operational plans for emergencies and non-emergency responses. So we have a draft plan. Again, what that is how we plan to respond in a state of emergency. Currently, we rely on the City of Delray Beach's COOP plan because we're part of their fire rescue. Chief Hartman, who's in the back there, supplements that with our own little emergency response plan that really focuses on our stuff in particular, but it does cross into Delray. Starting again, May 1st, we will have our own that will be reviewed and in place. And covers everything from who has to respond when to what incidents, when do we evacuate staff. I mean, the county will tell us when to evacuate the barrier island. Again, that's usually category 2 or higher. Last year, they did that to kind of odd one where they said vacate, no one left, but it's usually 2 or 3. So they'll ask the barrier island folks to begin to evacuate and move inland. And when that happens, how long does staff stay on location before they have to withdraw as well at the last second? And then how we come back and what positions fall into that. So as you can imagine, police and fire would all be responsible to respond on a 24/7 basis, followed by the town manager, finance director, things of that nature, to create that response team, each having their specific responsibilities. Myself, along with the commission on the public information side, making sure we're getting out clear, consistent messages. Finance to make sure the money is deployed, resources are available. Fire rescue, doing those response. I forgot, Mr. Remus would be then in to start, doing assessments of buildings to make sure what's safe to occupy or not occupy. So all those things kind of go in that COOP plan in our staged response and timelines, and that will become available, a draft to the commission very shortly, I would imagine the next couple of weeks. Again, kept interviews, phase 2 concrete pour has been completed. As you noticed, they're framing the second floor. So we're going vertical, folks. So we're starting to move. We have all steel. So supply chain, we were able to get that in the right spaces. So we have all the steel for setting the beams, and then we will start going to the second floor and then looking to start enclosing the structure and then finish the interior work therein. So we're making great progress on schedule. Appears on budget from everything I've seen. No crazy change orders or inability to procure any items. So everything with fire is going quite well. And again, we're also just letting folks know we're going to slowly start going around meeting condo buildings. You'll start getting letters from Matt Wellhoff, the fire marshal, just so we can come in, meet and greet, meet your property managers, meet your condo boards, residents, take a look around, make sure everything's safe, secure. In essence, what are we about to inherit? Make sure we are able to respond appropriately come May 1st. That's pretty much the fire update. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Sounds good.
Okay, good.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Glad to hear that everything is on schedule.
Thank you.
Okay, next item B, Florida Department of Transportation RRR project update.
Again, so you've approved the contract for utility adjustments as we discussed last time. David's getting that check cut. Commissioner Peters driveway replacement. Yes, I just talked with Brad via email. They will be replacing driveways in kind. So folks, if FDOT comes along and does widening in front of your either condo or your home and messes up your driveway or has to adjust it, it's on them, and they will replace with in-kind materials. So if you have the some type of terracotta or special concrete, stamped concrete, whatever it is, they're going to do in-kind replacements. So it's not like they're going to rip out your, marble driveway and then pour concrete or asphalt. So those are going to be in-kind replacements, and they will be adjusted for grade. So what that means is if they have to do something with the road grading, they're not going to leave you with a hole in your driveway from two different. They're going to have to make that adjustment or correction. And that's where, if you recall from reviewing those exciting plans, there's a lot of pathway adjustments too, to raise that grade up where we have those dips to kind of make a smoother transition on the driveways. They have not scheduled the construction meeting yet. They're putting they're in the last 2 weeks of construction design elements, the 90% plan, where they'll have all of those final pieces in play. Then they'll be reaching back out to us with the final, if you will, final plans. It'll probably be a couple tweaks, and then look to us to schedule a meeting for construction sometime over the next few months to kind of get up to speed. With that, I would think I would have, in case they want to hold construction meetings for the public regarding also the MOT, which they won't have until the contractor's on board, like December, January. I might have Brad and or his team come in to talk to you all and just have a general public discussion of where we're at, how they see things going, things of that nature, Q&A type of thing. I'll try to get that maybe in October, November. Delay as late as possible, get as many residents back here so they know and can ask those questions before the formal construction meeting where you may not get the opportunity to have a more one-on-one conversation with the FDOT folks, especially as a commission, you're kind of, everybody's talking all at once. So we'll work on that. So no other big changes to the design in that.
Excuse me, question, with the driveways are involved, especially with this one driveway, ample notice because the residents will not have egress or to their garages and so forth during, I would assume during that construction.
For those with low profile vehicles, I would say, but you're gonna be a little more careful because when they tear it out, it'll be gravel. So you'll be able to access like during the day. It may take a minute or two. Unless they're doing there's one property where we're doing a structure change. So they may put a gravel pass around, but it could be a little bumpy. So that would be something we'll have to make sure is in place for folks that, if it does seem to be a lot of change, but they're going to maintain access at all times. And they will let you know when that phase is coming. We're looking for that phasing plan, if you will, phase one, because again, remember they said they're going to do about a quarter mile at most, 1,000, 2,000 feet at a time. So all those folks, when that work is being done, the grading, adjustments, you'll be notified there. Same with the irrigation. They'll be doing that type of phasing too, because they're responsible for all irrigation. So they'll come out. They've asked for our assistance to work with the condo buildings to, work with their subcontractor for irrigation. So you could turn your system on so they can mark heads and have an idea what's to be protected or what's about to be destroyed and then replaced. So we're kind of working through that, but that's part of the construction part. And they kind of want that contractor on board to see what they don't usually drive means and method during the design phase. They just say they want this done and give general suggestions. The contractor will come in and tell FDOT, here's the most efficient way with our equipment to do these things. And then they'll go back and forth. And then that kind of serves as the basis also for how they're going to maintain traffic.
A question. How are they going to deal with Mrs. Milani's spot where she has 9 units going up? Because we don't want her to, after they pass by, to come in and then make a mess of what they've just done because she has to put cuts in.
So they have been her design team has been in contact with FDOT and has preliminary approval for their driveway cuts. I'm sure they need a little bit of grading, but their architect and engineers have been working with FDOT to secure that preliminary approval to make sure the grades match, because it's going to be kind of steep on how much they have to raise that initial 8 feet of lift, just kind of steep. So they have to work on the grades and how those cuts are going to come in. But yeah, they've been in contact. We identified that early, along with the potential for the park at some point in time, either not before or during, probably after would be at that same time. So I've tried to get them in contact with the county to see what's going on with that, which we've all gotten a little bit of an update on. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on to new business. Item A, responsibilities and activities of the canvassing board.
Okay, you have the information before you today in regards to the responsibility when it comes to the canvassing board. The town commission decided a few years ago to maintain its own canvassing board. So with that, and it's also outlined in our charter as far as who's on our canvassing board. Currently, it's the town clerk, the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Election or designee, and one commissioner who is not running for office. So currently that is who serves on our canvassing board. I do recall a few years ago, Wendy, I think it was when we had our special election in November, she mentioned that the town cannot pretty much designate her to be on our canvassing board. So that's where we're at with that. Currently, there's 39 municipalities in Palm Beach County, most of the municipalities have designated the county canvassing board to serve as their canvassing board members. There's a few still in Highland Beach, in Palm Beach County, which is the city of Delray, the city of West Palm, Juno Beach, and Highland Beach. There's 4.
Actually, Juneau uses the county now.
Oh, they use the county now. Okay. One
Yeah,
less.
and West Palm Beach wasn't there either when we were up there, just us and Delray.
Yeah, we were the 3 that had an election at that time.
So what I would add to that, which is something I think Mr. Rubin is going to have to weigh in at some point in time. Our charter requires our board to be assembled as such, which in order to change it would require a referendum. Now, my question would be is if the county is saying you can't do this, does that in effect change our charter as a higher governing board? You can't we can't obligate or require an elected officer of the county to come in. So I don't know how that would play out even if we agree, say we said, okay, we'll change the charter to say either or. So we reserve the right, but add the ability to go. Well, what if the voters say no, and Wendy says you can't obligate me. So what do we do? So.
Has the supervisor said she would not? Or-
She pretty much said that the municipality can't tell her to serve, be a member of our board.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify, so she will do it if the entire canvassing board is the county board. She will not serve the way we have it, where 2 of the 3 is from the town and then she's one. That's what she
Correct.
said she
Correct.
will not do. Either all of it has to go to the county
Yes.
or all of it has to stay, we have to appoint
Right.
other people. And I thought she explained it was something about the liability that she
Yes.
incurs when it's kind of a mixed, so.
Correct.
Yeah, it was common for a while for her to serve along with whoever the municipality designated, but a couple of years ago, everyone moved. She's like, no, it has to be the county, or you have your own, or you have the county.
Right.
I don't remember her serving as part of our committee last time when we were there. We had our own meetings and
Yes.
it was
She-
4 of us.
Correct.
She
She
was
just,
in the room, but she wasn't part of the meeting.
right, the last election, she wasn't. She just kind of was in the room. She kind of guided us or gave us some guidance if necessary, but we, as the canvassing board for the town, did our own motions, did our own minutes. We did everything.
So if we can't obligate a constitutional officer of the state. I know Linelda's doing a little research too, as we recall from our multiple charter boards over the years and background. We can modify the charter via ordinance so long as it hasn't been modified via a referendum. So we're trying to see if this is a clean piece where potentially we can just do an ordinance correction to change the charter. Or if it was a referendum item, which then would necessitate a vote. But I didn't know if there's any state statute that says you can't,
No, not that I'm aware of, but there's statutes that say that you can vary your election date and your qualifying and all that stuff, even if it's in your charter, you can do it by ordinance, but I never recall anything saying about A, obligating a constitutional officer, and B, if you have to change it because she won't serve, can you do that by some other means? That's something we'll have to look at.
Having done this for our March election, along with Natasha and Linelda and Jackie, it's a supreme waste of time and money. That, in fact, the county supervisor looks at all of this stuff anyway, and you're constantly calling meetings and adjourning them and calling them and adjourning them because you can't have more than an hour in between when you last adjourned and when you open again. And I think if we had 8 or 10 signatures to look at, it was a lot. And if we rejected a signature, they still would go back to the person and see if they could correct it. So that if they would come in with a driver's license or show in some way that, yes, it was them, it was their signature. for us to keep going back and forth and for us to pay our employees overtime to sit up there and do nothing is just absurd, because I understand people don't want to give up control on things. This is not control of anything. So I think whatever we have to do to get this off of our plate makes perfect sense.
Wendy is actually joined the meeting if you all want me to let
So
her in.
can we interrupt this item for?
I mean, you can,
Yes.
if you want.
Yes, but I mean, to conclude it, we need to get Len to give his opinion on the legality of what our options are to navigate these waters a little bit. Can we just do it by ordinance? Then it makes sense. I'm hearing the commission would suggest moving in that direction. So be it. If not, then maybe there's something else, some other provision that's superseded, if you will, or we're preempted. Our charter is preempted by a state statute that would say you kind of have to follow along. So.
Okay, so it was just Len coming back to us with
Right.
his opinion. Okay.
And
And
I
you
just
don't
got
need-
one question. Now, we will save $20,000? Is that what reading the paper on this if we let the county do it?
No,
Not for
No.
canvassing now.
No. So
not for canvassing.
Because
It's
we
just,
have
they
to
will be
pay them.
doing canvassing only. I'll still be the qualifying
well,
officer.
fine, everything.
The Highland Beach resident who wants to run an election will come through the town. The county it's just a county canvassing board versus the municipal canvassing board.
But you will be saving travel money
Yes,
and
travel.
overtime for our employees and just for their time. If they're up there, they're not down here doing what
Right.
they need to be doing here. So there is a cost.
It is, of course.
Well, it appears that there's no benefit
There's no
for the autonomy.
Mm.
So certainly if there's a way, and there's no financial impact. So if there is a way that legal will discover for us to proceed on, that would be wonderful.
Hopefully an easy way. We're looking for.
Okay. So you ready for me to join her? Anything you want to ask? her?
Or maybe we could, do you have any more comments?
No.
No? Okay, yeah, well, go ahead. We'll have her so we'll move to her presentation.
She may
Okay.
speak about it. I actually have a video on, so she probably just logged in, but I don't think she's there. Her name is there. Wendy? I don't think she logged in, but I don't think she's there. Okay.
I mean, I could add to the discussion as well. So when I first started, I volunteered for the canvassing board, and it was when Wendy was actually part of it. She was willing to be part of it. And it was when we were making the changes for the fire department. So it was important. The spirit at the time was for us to do our own thing. So I was part of that vote, and it's included in our agenda, where we all agreed to continue with the canvassing board. But it was a very different level of responsibility.
Oh,
It's the meeting here, Barb. Let me get rid of it.
Hi, Mayor, Wendy.
Oh, she's on. Okay, I'll continue after.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
You're on.
All right. So nice to see all of you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming, Wendy.
Yeah, I just wanted to be available to answer any questions that you all might have. One of the things that we have offered to all the municipalities, and probably, I don't know, 3/4 or so have taken us up on it. Not everybody has. And we're, like I say, we're good with whatever each municipality wants to do. but it's something that we offer at no extra charge to the municipalities because we're there doing it anyway. And that is to handle, if you would like, we'll handle the canvassing board, not only the meetings, but also the requirements that go with the canvassing board, which is to have somebody present anytime we're opening ballots, doing all of that, and especially going into the PPP, because there's going to be more, right? So we'll be meeting more, and we can't separate, just your municipality from the rest of because it's all on one ballot. So we're anticipating that we'll have more ballots and be meeting more often and opening and duplicating and things more often, which just means that somebody from your canvassing board needs to be there at all of those times. And that's a requirement of the law. It's not something we require. And so just wanted to be available if you had any questions, or if you were considering delegating those responsibilities to our canvassing board. That is the county canvassing board. In March, it would be made up of me as the supervisor of elections, the county commissioner. I don't know yet, they haven't designated which county commissioner. Last time it was Commissioner Marino. I believe that's who it will be, but they haven't officially designated. And then a county court judge. And the county court judge is the chair of the canvassing board. So we're then just do all of your stuff along with ours. If that's not going to be the case, like I said, then we would just need to have somebody from your canvassing board there with us, and it would be a lot more in March than it normally would be, just because we've got a whole countywide election going. So if there was anything I could answer for you, if you had any questions, I wanted to make myself available.
Yeah, thank you for that, Wendy. I think our issue is it's part of our charter. So it's our attorney is going to give us more information on what we can do easily. I think each of us are in favor of having the county do the canvassing board responsibilities. It's just how can we implement that?
Okay.
So that's kind of where.
Yeah, I know it's hard. Some have had to go to charter changes. Others, can do it with their commission, again, depending upon how their particular charter is set up. But like I say, we're happy either way. We're always happy to work with the canvassing boards of those municipalities that choose to keep their own. It's never a problem. I just we're just offering it again because we know that it will be more work, which is, it's also kind of, it's a little boring, and it's a little bit of a waste of time because you're sitting there just waiting for one of your city, ballots to come up, and we don't know when that will be. So if there's anything, like I say, anything we can do to help, we're more than happy. And as I mentioned before, there is no additional cost to the municipality because we're there doing it anyway.
Okay, go ahead, Marshall.
Quick question, maybe a long answer. We've been informed by the Diocese of Palm Beach County that St. Lucie Church would not be available for our polling location, which has me concerned as we don't have any other facility in town to host. We have used our library in the past, but we're under construction. So nearly half of our parking's gone. How do we move forward? I don't want to say you have to do, but I mean, what do we do,
Right. So right now, I think we were looking at maybe having to go to Spanish River. I can get that and get back to you, maybe even before your meeting's over. I'd have to get our polling location specialist. I know she's been working on it. Our initial thought was that it would be at your library, City Hall, where we've done it before we realized that you were under construction. So we've also still been trying to get the diocese to reconsider, but our understanding is they are not. So we are having to, and a lot of our churches and temples, not just the Catholic churches, have decided that they would not be polling locations in 2024. So we're doing a lot of moving around, and So you're unfortunately one of many, but you're one of the few where there's nothing else within your municipality that we can, think of. So we're open to any suggestions. If you all have something that you think would work well for you. If not, I know we're just going to have to move you to where we'll get to the closest location that we can. It would be obviously outside of the municipality, but it would be as close as we could get where there's room to put you.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then I don't know, hopefully this won't be a problem or an issue for you all, but we have heard from other groups that there are some who are fearful that they may lose, and I'm not putting anybody on the spot, just letting you know, generally this is the case across the county, that there's some concern that some people may not continue as elected officials after December of this year. And so we have put out sort of a schedule that's the best that we could do, trying to help the municipalities cover that eventuality if it were to happen, while also dealing with the fact that we're in a presidential election and we're moving our warehouse as soon as March is over. So as you look at that schedule, if you think that's anything that would potentially affect your city, feel free to give me a call, and I'm happy to walk through that with you. And Lynelda has some information about that also.
Any other questions for Wendy? Well, I don't think we have any other questions. Thank you for participating in our meeting.
Oh, you're welcome. Yep. Anything that we can do, please just don't hesitate to call.
Okay.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that came at a good time. Yeah. All right. Next item B, approve and authorize the town manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the South Central Planning and Development Commission for a government management software module collectively called My Government Online. So we have our building official.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Jeffrey, Miss Building Official, Town of Highland Beach. For over 2 years, myself and staff has been evaluating another software. I was going to say the word company, but this isn't a company, to see if we have something better to fill in all of the gaps and correct some of the downfalls that we have with the current software that we're using. And we've been working with and getting multiple demos from My Government Online, which is actually a software that is owned by another governmental agency that does permitting and inspections out of Louisiana and has been doing for 20 years and has had this software that they've been developing over the last 17 years. So in doing so, we've determined collectively that evaluating the software for the last 2 years, it'll put us in a better place than where we are right now with the current software, which we have is pretty decent. It's good. There are a lot of workarounds. And there's a bunch of downfalls that we have with it. But this particular software is going to be all inclusive for us and work significantly better for essentially the same cost and better service. And the only thing I'm going to bring up as one final thing here is that one of the biggest items here is that they have, when a customer goes to the online, they have a 1-800 number there. And if they have trouble navigating through the system, that 1-800 number rings at their office, not ours. So that frees us up to spend more time with other customers that have more technical questions and other issues like that. And that's about it. If you have any questions, again, this has been a over 2-year endeavor of evaluating many different ones, but keep going back to the exact same one.
As a follow-up to that, as you know, we do have BS&A as our financial module that does our payables, financing, accounting, all that stuff. We did look at that module as well because it wouldn't, directly tie. The unfortunate thing is it doesn't have an online basis or a web application that works well with our hybrid model that allows an inspector to upload results of an inspection on location. They have to come all the way back. So that adds a lot of time to the process to basically have to come back with a docking station. It's almost really out of date, if you will, to not have an app-driven inspection software. So that didn't work. That's why we looked there. SmartGov just has been creating all sorts of havoc on operations. And I'm glad I have a building official that's good with IT, or we'd be probably in a very different situation to work persistently with them to do workarounds, which is not what you want. You want a clean process for entry when you upload an application, when you enter an inspection, when you put the results in, rather than having to double track and find a back door into the process to make it happen. And it's also frustrating for our residents that have to upload this data as well. So that 1-800 number, it's not an offshore number. It actually goes to the agency. This is like a regional authority. So it's like a government agency that it goes to versus a corporation or a business. So they're driven on service, and they've shared this with other communities in Florida. So it's gaining steam as a popular, because it was designed by somebody like Jeff versus somebody like an IT professional trying to figure out how building works, building inspection processes work, or code enforcement. They actually developed their own software over time with their own employees that matches, the International Property Maintenance Code, state building codes, the processes that are normally followed. So it does work. It's pretty clean, pretty quick. It's pretty tidy as far as following the process.
Okay. If I read this correctly, our contract with the other company is going to be up in any event.
Eventually in June
In
of
June.
next year.
Yes.
Uh,
And there'd be a crossover period anyway, so we would definitely do it before so that it's a smooth transaction.
Yes,
Anything that makes it easier for people in our town to get the permit applications filled out correctly and quicker, I'm good with. Anything where you have more people answering telephones, I'm good with. And it seems that you can customize this so that we have the ability that our codes will be entered into their system. So it won't be a back and forth. It won't be that we have to change anything in our codes or how we function. It'll just be an easier process.
that is correct. It'll be a much easier process, especially on the user end for the people who are uploading the documents. It'll be way easier on that end for sure.
Yeah, well, that's where we get the complaints, is on the user end. So, okay. Yeah, it sounds like it's a win-win situation for us at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Jeff, you're gonna make a lot of the builders and the GCs happy with this, anything happy. You're the expert. I agree with you. This is a good thing.
I also concur. It seems like this is the next generation software. So is that
Yeah,
right?
they are very progressive because it's not a for-profit company. Like Marcia was alluding to, it's a government agency who issues permits, has a building official and does all this. So they're always on the edge, and they don't have the layers of corporate red tape because they have everything's laid out, and everything that I brought up to them, because it took 2 years because there were some things that I didn't care for.
Mhm.
And they made those changes that quickly and said, yep, we're good. We have it all in place for you now, Jeff.
And in the integration of the information now in our software, is that going to be adaptable, or do we have to input all the information?
So, yeah, so that is the
Mhm.
hardest part of any integration, no matter whether it's finance or building or anything else. We are going to run parallel. It's about a 6-month rollout. We're going to run parallel for a few months. And hopefully we'll be closing out all the old permits in our old legacy, I guess we can call it SmartGov system. And then once that's done, we'll have few left, and then they write the program that converts all the data. Or this is what they do all the time. It's the most difficult part. But it's where they take the data that we have and they put it in where it belongs in their software. And they just do it over a weekend or whatever, but we won't be on a big rush for it. Because of the timing. If we start now,
Mhm.
we'll have plenty of time to get this rolled out, but integration is difficult. But it's, now we're not going to be stressed to get it done on a certain date. We're going to have time to work out all the bugs.
All right, so under these two scenarios, tell me how it would work. As you say, that 6-month overlap. So you'll have both of them going at the same time. So you have a resident wanting to check permits. The historical, did they get those windows 10 years ago? Will they be able to, with ease, find that information and know if it's during that 6-month period, where to check?
Right, so we're going to do the same thing that the city of Boynton Beach just did. We're going to be running both systems parallel because we're going to be running the legacy SmartGov system
Mhm.
while we're working on implementing and going live with the other one. So we're going to be closing out permits on one and starting the other. So, we're going to have to let people know, and this is an excellent point that you're making, that on the website, we're going to have to say, if your permit was issued or applied for prior to this date, this is the, click here. If your permit was applied for or issued after this date, click here. So they're going to have an option, so they're going to know where to look, but eventually all the data is going to integrate so that in the future, if we want to check back 9 years about what permit was issued for a property, all of that information will be there.
That's great. Well, certainly, the impact, there is no impact, it's same cost. And you have increased services and a better system and the customer service. Certainly, that's really important for a resident. So yes, I'm totally in support. Thank you.
Appears to be absolutely the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm in favor, I guess, just a couple of questions. So how long has the software been, and how long has it been in use?
The software has been in use for 17 years.
Oh, 17 years. Okay. But you were just hesitant because of a couple things which they.
Yeah, they were working on some tweaking with what Bluebeam, which is a PDF driven software that we utilize for, looking at the drawings and so on. And just a couple of things, but they were making adjustments on because they're always moving forward and very progressive.
Okay. And have a lot of building departments adopted this? Like, do you have a feel for? how
Yeah,
much
they're
of
all
this is-
over the place. They
they're all-
just took over Indian River County. They inked a deal with Pensacola. There's a couple more full counties. I can't remember all of them. I should have.
Is it national or is it just Florida? Is it a national?
No, they're out of Louisiana,
So
so they're all over the United States, but the southeast, they're pretty
Right.
heavy in the southeast, obvious, but they keep branching out and Florida seems to be growing and growing and growing with them. They're very progressive with everything that they're and expanding rather well. And we even confirmed, and I would let like Linnell to know that they are their own like repository, like they're their own government authorized repository for files.
Okay, and the experience is good, the municipalities that have adopted this.
Yeah, the ones that
then-
I've contacted said that they're very happy. Some of them don't use the system to its full,
Mm.
but we like to use we like to use every aspect of it. But everyone I've spoken with has been very happy with it.
So good reviews.
So far, good reviews, yeah. Like I said, it's been a 2-year process.
Okay, so it sounds like for some short period of time to access the historical permits, there'll be 2 options depending on the date of the permit. But then at some point in the future, it'll all be migrated into one system and we'll
June.
still have all the history for a particular.
Correct.
property.
June of 2024, where there'll only be one system.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So
Right.
it's the 6 months leading up to
Yeah.
June
It's
24.
gonna take 6 months before we're gonna even go live with this new software
Okay.
because it's a slow build. I have to
Okay.
build out the system with them. What permits what inspections in what order the inspections have to be. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen, integrating it with the GIS software, with the county for the parcels. There's a lot of stuff.
I have an additional question. Will this generate a faster response as well?
In what way? Faster response?
the permits? I mean, will this facilitate the work getting done easier, faster? Will you?
It'll
will-
be a quicker workflow with less workaround, so it is gonna
Okay.
speed things up a little bit. I don't think it's gonna be super measurable because the most of the delays we have in permitting, it's getting people to submit the right stuff and sign the right forms and not just upload a blank piece of paper, which is what's happening.
So we're looking really about the increase in the expansion of services. And just better, quicker software that affords better customer service.
It does because we're not gonna have as many workarounds, so it'll be smoother operation for us, which is gonna equate to quicker response time eventually to everyone else. I don't have to go through all these hoops and do workarounds, which is really the problem right now, or wait because Bluebeam is down and it's not connecting and we're waiting. I was down for 2 weeks with almost no plan review because the connection was down between SmartGov and Bluebeam. This eliminates that.
Excellent, thank you.
And I would imagine the online presence. So like how you were mentioning, you don't have to dock it here in town in order to complete your work. But
Yeah,
just to be-
everything is easy. We don't have to dock for the inspectors. They can go out with an app and they can take a picture, do everything. They can look at their schedule. And now it'd actually be better for the contractors because now we'll be able to actually share who the inspector was. And they can actually, if I tie it in with the GIS, they can literally see where the inspector is. So they know if they're on their way or something. And then it'll have their name and their information. Right now, they have to keep calling us because I can't even get SmartGov to show the inspector's name and phone number. So everyone has to call. So that's why Carol starts early at 8 AM instead of 8:30, because all the phone calls come in with who's my inspector, what's his phone number. And now it's all going to be out there for them.
Well, that definitely sounds a lot better to have less
Yeah.
calls for staff. There's nobody here, but any public comments for this item?
It is a packed house.
I know, it's a packed house, I know. Okay, so if there's nothing else, do we have a motion?
Yes, I move that we approve and authorize the town manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with SCPDC for a government management software module collectively called My Government Online.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Yes. Oh, so we have one more item. Yeah, okay, good. So now this is the item that was moved
Right.
from the
Consent agenda.
consent agenda.
It was
Yes.
moved, it was off the consent. end.
No,
No, just off.
It was pulled.
Pulled from the
consent-
consent.
Pulled from the consent and moved on to that.
That's what I said in the text.
So item 11C, approve and authorize the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with GFA International, doing business as Universal Engineering Services for the building inspections, plan review, code enforcement inspections, and building official services for the building department according to the City of Lake Worth Beach request for proposal number 22-204. So if you could present this item, this is the first time we're seeing this.
Yeah,
So if
absolutely.
you could provide some explanation.
It
Hey, Jeff,
is-
Jeff, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
There's one thing was a little unclear. Is this to replace or
No.
add to?
Add to.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Which is what we need to do. Yeah. Okay, so what this is for, this is to expand our capabilities and give us more resources, more. We can pull from more resources, okay? CAP, government, and everyone right now is having a very difficult time hiring qualified individuals to do inspections and plan review. As a result, we don't have the consistency that we wanted. We had some hiccups. And I've had to train multiple people who just come and go, don't show up the next day. People that this didn't work out for us, and it's been a little bit difficult for one company to provide people that we need at the level of expectation that we should have for the residents of this town. So as a result, I don't like to keep all my eggs in one basket. So I would prefer that we have more resources available. Universal Engineering is a very large company. They have a lot of resources for us to pull from if we need. And now is really the time for the simple fact that the hurricane season is upon us. So if anything happens here, instead of us only being able to pull from one company, the personnel we need, for the dealing with the aftermath, we now have at least two companies to pull from with very similar, almost identical rates. And it just expands us and it gives us more options. And if I can have more people, then there's a good chance I may be able to take vacation.
Nope.
Yeah.
How does that affect the priority of those companies where they have one client versus now there'll be two companies, if you will, and where they put their resources, if they have the bandwidth, and there's one company, wouldn't they put them there first before they would put them to us?
Everyone runs things differently. Right now, it's very customary, and I've checked with other municipalities and I've checked with these. Almost every decent size municipality has multiple third parties to pull from as they need. Because there's not always someone available. If we have a full-time position available that we need to fill, whoever can give me that person first is who I'm going to pull from. Versus not having someone. And not having someone to pull from. So they allot their personnel to where they need to for full-time positions, and then everyone else is scrambling just to fill in whatever they could. You wake up in the morning as a cap inspector, you have no idea where you're going to be that day or how many inspections, what town you're going to be in.
So will you be looking for more companies in order that have these
Well,
type of services? Like why, I guess I don't understand why, why did we only ever limit to cap? Has this come up before? If they're struggling this much to find people, would it be wise to look for even more?
Well, it's not just cap, it's every company. We just only have one, and I did go through an issue where we had someone in-house that just wasn't working out. And then when we had to get rid of them, they had no one to replace. And then that put everything on me to try to cover. And it was very difficult. It was at the same time that, the system was that we had a very difficult 6 weeks. It's, which we had some delay. We went from like 4 or 5 days turnaround time for plan review to all of a sudden 10 and 11, which is still fantastic, by the way, just so you know. But this was kind of sparked by the fact that all these third parties are stealing from each other. There's guys that are leaving cap, going to Universal, guys from Universal going to cap. It's just, everybody's making a rotation and you don't know where they're going to be. We just simply need more resources. And it really hit home when they didn't have anyone to give me to fill a full-time position.
And to supplement that conversation is we are looking for a plan reviewer to have full-time, more vested. Can't find them. And we've been trying to recruit for like 6 weeks, not there. And if we recall from our conference, hopefully in about a year or two, we'll be coming to you with an AI program that does plan review in an hour. And then Jeff his life will be much easier. His dark hair will come back
Yes.
and boom, instead of something that would take somebody all day to review, it's done in, an hour. But we just can't find the folks, nor can, I spoke with ownership of CAP. They can't find they just can't find anybody to fill these spots, like a dying breed, if you will. No one's moving into the trades, and then no one's moving into the trades inspection side. So it's a little bit challenging environment with the growth of development here in South Florida too.
Yeah, it looks like the qualifications of the people, the personnel there, they have high standards too, which is good. Now, Jeff, is there gonna be any trouble, like if you have one inspector, one company who look at your place, and then all of a sudden he has to, is the same guy coming back, or with the other company? Or could you crisscross those two?
Yeah, it does. Whoever's
Doesn't
available is going to come out. We are looking for that consistency here. And that's really the ultimate goal, is so that we are sending the same guy out to look at your job, to develop that rapport. Remember, oh yeah, you know what, Bob, I took care of that. And I know you were going to, that's what we want. We're not always there, which is the problem when you have the hybrid system, because you never know who you're going to get. But we have made commitments that we need someone full-time, for structural inspections and plan review. We have that on the plumbing mechanical end. I have a dual certified guy who goes out and he does all the plumbing and mechanical inspections, and everyone has known him for years.
Right.
So we have that consistency. We don't have that consistency on the structural end. I'm taking care of the electrical. We have pretty much the same electrical inspectors. I'm doing most of the plan review for the electrical and whatever else I do. Structural plan review, obviously, whatever I have to do to keep up with things, but it's always going to, even within a municipality, if you have the different inspector come out to the job, it's been an issue with everybody.
You're right. Thank you, Jeff. That sounds good.
And as to the cost,
The cost is about the same. They're gonna be about $85 an hour for inspections or plan review, which is actually less than the contract that we are piggybacking off of, because their plan review on, I think it's like $112.50. They're doing it for 85. So they signed a contract with us. It's a really good rate.
yeah, do you know, following up on the mayor's comment, do we know that they have the bodies there, the additional bodies that we need? Or
They don't have someone full-time for me, but they have coverage for like inspections and plan review if I need for a day, whatever I need. So they have people right now, but now CAP just gave me somebody full-time.
Mm.
So I'm in pretty good shape, but we still want to have this ability to pull in more people if needed.
Okay, and I'm curious, how much of the expansion on our need for, I mean, your work, your department's work has grown exponentially, particularly with the impact of the interlocal agreement.
We are very busy. And it has grown tremendously compared to what it was when I first came here in January of 2019 as a CAP inspector, actually. It's amazing how this kind of has exploded, and I don't see anything changing anytime soon based on a number of permits coming in. And which is why we eventually got to a point where we needed a full-time mechanical and plumbing inspector, a dual certified, why we need a full-time structural inspector and plans examiner. I mean, we're not to the point where we have just the plans examiner, then a separate inspector. These guys are coming in and they're doing everything, which is why I chose the guy from CAP for mechanical and plumbing, because he's dual certified. If you go to the city of West Palm Beach, they're gonna have mechanical plans examiners, plumbing plans examiners, plumbing inspectors, mechanical, they're gonna stay separate everything. We're just at that sweet spot right now where we're able to handle everything.
Well, this seems that it really also anticipates even more expansion.
Yes.
So, again, the impact fiscally is fine. And it looks like a go. Excellent, thank you.
We pay them, they're not our employees by and large. So that means that right now there's a lot of building and construction going on. At least some of it is due to the new state and our regulations. But this also gives you the ability to cut back if you need to,
Yes.
because we use them basically on an as-needed basis.
And that's the great part about it. It's our variable. We have our fixed costs, and of course, Gulfstream is a tremendous help with that. And then the adjustment, and we need somebody, we don't need somebody, we adjust our hours and it works. There's been times when we got a little slow and I called CAP and I'm like, hey, Joe can do some, why don't you send him out to Boynton or something for the end of the day? And he goes out in 3 hours, I didn't have to pay him for it at the end of the day because he went and made money for them at another town. So it's nice to have that flexibility to adjust for the market conditions.
I don't see any downside to this, and there's only upsides. So thank you.
I agree as well. So can we have a motion, please?
I move that we approve and authorize the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with GFA International, doing business as Universal Engineering Services for the building inspections, plan review, code enforcement inspections, and building official services.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on. Thank you very much. Moving on to town commission comments. Commissioner Goldberg.
I found it an excellent opportunity to discuss
You want me to repeat everything?
No.
All right, so I personally plan on becoming involved in the formulation of policy and advocacy, and I'll continue to report on what becomes of that.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Peters.
I just like, actually thank Jeff runs a good department and just improving and all keeping up to date with the software is very important. It's going to improve everything. He's got a great office up there. You mentioned Carol, and if we can alleviate some of the work, and maybe she can come in not so early, it would help. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. Also, I believe we were the only town at this convention that had our entire commission there, which I'm proud of that we did that. It shows that we are all committed to doing this job. So thank you.
Commissioner Stern.
I agree. I think it was a great experience, and to Marshall's point, IT may be taking us all over pretty shortly. Thank you.
Yeah, they'll have artificial intelligence for the commissioners, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, definitely some really interesting, thought-provoking presentations, and it's my first time going to a full and conference, and it was definitely really good. And I really enjoyed spending time with each of you and developing our relationship even further. So it was really, really great. We did all receive an email about a concern about cell phone equipment being on top of buildings. And I don't know much. Yes, Monterey House was the condo, the two residents from Monterey House expressed some concern, and kind of timely, right? Because we were just talking about the cell phone equipment on the water tower, and we just have one company, Sprint. So Monterey House, I guess, apparently has several. And the concern was about whether this could potentially do any public harm because of the EMF ways. I know nothing about this. So I guess my suggestion is this something that we take up, or that perhaps we ask the Natural Resources Preservation Board, maybe for them to consider? Or I think each of us were on that email. I don't know what my colleagues here think, if this should be an item on a future agenda or pass it to the Natural Resources Preservation Board.
I'm not sure at this point we have the ability to limit them. We would have to do that. There'd have to be a whole ordinance process, and I would need a whole lot more information than what we have before I would do that.
So these are ones on an existing condominium.
Yes,
Yep,
So they authorized it, but then there's a couple of residents that are, okay, I got you.
correct.
Yeah, we don't really have much ability to regulate that, but
And I think their issue is, does this present a broader safety issue for the town, is how they're presenting it. And I mean, I'm fine if we pass on it, or if anyone thinks that there's any
You-
concern here.
Do you need a permit to put on one of your buildings like that? I know
think the
most
answer is yes,
places you
it's
do.
not.
The answer is yes.
To put them on,
Yes.
so, once the
Yeah, you have to
building
make-
authorizes or the town authorizes it, they're allowed to put it up. The secondary issue are, EMFs, right? The electromagnetic waves, the concern over 5G where you're pushing high levels of data. I know Mark's in the back of the room. Maybe I'll have him give you the 3-hour dissertation on 5G. Sorry, Mark. But he's given me a good education on it that in order to move 5G, which puts a lot of data, it can't go as far, right? So it's pushing a lot of data. So you need more points to catch that 5G and move it. And that came out of cell phones too. Everyone was concerned. What does this do? Ear cancer, it's to your face. So that's been around for a while. So it's kind of, there are some concerns. I think the science is still being finished or research is still continuing on what are these long-term effects, right? Having instantaneous data, everything on Bluetooth, cell phones. What is that electromagnetic energy around you doing to you? Does it cause? And there are some research that says it does. But it's a hard field to wade into at the local level. Because it's not all concluded, you know. There's places in Europe that have certain limits. So I mean, it's hard to do that. I mean, so you could pass it to the natural resource to do some research, maybe put some information out to the community, but to regulate it is that's difficult. The telecommunication industries operate as a utility, if you will, and are preempted from anything local. There's not much you could do to stop it.
They took that control away a couple of years ago.
Yeah. It was the same up
lot
north.
of
They took
side
that away and you kind of just have to go with it and just, be careful and things of that nature. I mean, there are some basic precautionary things you can do, keep your cell phone away from you, reduce time of usage. But there's others that go even further than that. And, it just all depends on what your concern level is. We could put out some basic research, direct people to some places where they can get more information. But that's probably where our limits are.
They are allowed to put multiple cell towers on a building that's allowable as long.
As long as it's structurally, it can handle the loading and the signals and enclosing and screens. There's stuff like that we have certain regulatory, so it doesn't become obnoxious. And the telecommunication industry has been somewhat okay with that. You'll hear about distributed antenna systems. Is how you're going to move 5G because you can't move that data that far. So you'll start having more of these 5G structures around town. Sometimes they look like a little gray garbage can on top of a concrete pole. That's a 5G pole pushing data around. And eventually, because we all want everything on our phones quickly, you're going to have more antennas to push that data. So, we'll probably learn about it too late, but, there are some precautions that, you can take it home.
Okay, thank you. And then we also received a letter about Milani Park from the county with just stating their intent to move forward. We don't have many more details beyond that. Marshall may have more of an update when he
So
has it. Okay.
again, that's correct. You all have that information that came from county administration that they have decided to move forward. They won't be seeking, from what I could tell at this point, seeking that last 5-year extension on their contract. I gave the commission a copy from the initial development order down to the last amendment to that stipulated agreement. That basically spells out what has to be done and when and how. There's a lot of archaeological items, if you recall, that have to be executed first. We will be reaching out to the county commissioner to get more information. As we would have liked maybe to have been a little bit more involved, but again, we're not truly a partner on that settlement agreement. They can move forward as they see fit, so long as it's consistent with that agreement. So it's early. We're going to start having that conversation. Everyone should know that the county has made its written expressed intent to move forward. They've also at the same time, or at least I'm getting from the county commission, there still is the willingness to keep the park small and passive in nature at this point. But we haven't As the mayor's indicated, I haven't seen any details. As soon as I get them, you'll be the guys will be the first ones to get it, but I haven't seen any more detail, granular as to what that looks like. Outside of that, they have written expressing their intent to move forward.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me. Next item, town attorney's report.
All righty. Do you have the PowerPoint one today? You operate it. You're the best. Alrighty. So this is about Senate Bill 774. I think you've heard a lot about this already, so I don't want to be beating a dead horse here, but it's about the new financial disclosures for local officials. So during the last legislative session, the Florida legislature enacted Senate Bill 774, which amends Chapter 112 to require elected members of a governing municipal body to file a full disclosure of financial interests, which is the Form 6 with the Florida Commission on Ethics. You previously elected officials, local elected officials were required to file Form 1. And the disclosure of the form is a public record and is required to be posted on the commission's website. So that's just an FYI. So who does it apply to? It applies to mayors, elected members of the governing body of the municipality, and anyone who is appointed to replace an elected official for the remainder of a term in case there's a vacancy. That person would then have to file the Form 6. So when do they take effect? Basically, January 1, 2024. If you don't want to, this is something that the supervisor of elections alluded to. And I have heard in some municipalities this might happen. If you resign before January 1, 2024, you do not have to file the Form 6. But if you resign after January 1, 2024, you're in office after January 1, 2024, you will have to file the Form 6. And once you resign, there's a Form 6F, but you will have to, if you're in office after that date, you will have to do the full financial disclosure. And basically what's included in the form, we go to the next slide, is your net worth, assets valued over $1,000, liabilities valued over $1,000, income and interest in specified businesses. There's a copy of the form. It's a little more in-depth than the Form 1 that you're used to and that I have to fill out as well. So we'll start with Part A, which is net worth. Essentially, you add the value of all your assets, which is the aggregate value of your household goods and personal effects, value of assets worth over $1,000. And these all get reported in other parts. Value of any asset worth less than $1,000 that's not reported. And then you subtract your liabilities. Those liabilities are reported in Part C. It's the total value of the unreported liabilities and does not include joint and several liabilities, which I'll get into in a second. So for assets, which is Part B, you have household goods and personal effects. They can be reported in a lump sum if their aggregate value exceeds $1,000. And what you're talking about here is, I was like guns as an example, jewelry, guns, art, furniture, vehicles for personal use, whether owned or leased. And then you have assets that are individually valued at over $1,000, which is interest in real property, cash, stocks, bonds, bank accounts, drop accounts, prepaid college, that kind of stuff, brokerage accounts, all your traditional investments. Some questions that have come up is you don't have to report the assets solely owned by your spouse. So if your spouse only owns assets, you do not have to report it. With jointly held assets, you have to report your percentage of ownership. So how much you owe and what that's worth. Except if you're married and you own a tenancy by the entirety, you have to report the whole thing. Everyone's like, yeah, that's true. Or if it's a joint tenant with right of survivorship, you have to report the whole thing. But I mean, these get into technical issues that are more, financial advisor in nature. But so Part C is the liabilities. Generally, you must report liabilities over $1,000, which are accounts, notes, interest payable, debts or obligations, judgments, unpaid portions of your vehicle leases. You do not have to report certain liabilities, which are retail, your credit card accounts, taxes owed unless they've been reduced to a judgment, contingent liabilities, and again, liabilities that are solely your spouse's liability or responsibility. But we already said you have to report joint and several liabilities. So that includes business partnerships as well as marriages. You report and the example is if you have $100,000 business loan for a bank, 50,000 you report as personal, but then the other 50 is still reported as a joint and several. So income, there's a part D that talks about how you compute it, or you can just attach a copy of your federal income tax return with all schedules, W-2s and attachment. Income means the same as gross income for federal tax purposes, even if not actually taxable. So that could include compensation for services, income from business, gains from property dealings, rents, dividends, etc. You must also report secondary income, which only applies if you own during the disclosure period more than 5% of the total assets of capital stock of a business entity, and you receive more than $1,000 in gross income from that business entity during the period. Again, income of spouse need not be disclosed. However, joint income to you and your spouse from jointly owned property would have to be disclosed. Part E is the interest in specified businesses. You must disclose if you own or owned either directly or directly in the form of an equitable or beneficial interest. Anytime during the disclosure period, more than 5% of the total assets or capital stock of certain types of businesses. And these are essentially banks, savings and loans, insurance companies, mortgage companies, credit unions. And there's a whole list of, without having to read them through, but any of those companies, you have to report your interest. And you must disclose if you are or were at any time during the reporting period an officer, director, partner, proprietor, or agent of any of those same entities. And the potential penalties for failure to comply, there's impeachment. This is always fun. There's impeachment, removal or suspension from office, public censure, reprimand, reduction in salary, forfeiture of salary, and a civil penalty not exceeding $20,000. So that's basically it. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And
I
you know,
guess I have a
this is
question.
one of those
I do
things
have-
that it's tough to get into until you get into, but
Yeah, I do have a question. So, all the other higher level positions, like state representative, whatever, county commissioners, they've had to report
Yeah.
this Form 6. It's just new for municipal, government
Mhm.
people, elected official.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's foreign to us because
It's
we
foreign-
haven't.
right,
had
the
to have-
form's been around
But the
forever.
form's been around for a long time and other people have been having to do that. I guess another question I have is any thoughts on whether you think this will change in the next session? Or I guess I also heard rumblings of, do you think there'll be exceptions for certain sizes of municipalities? Like,
I've heard rumblings. Generally, once it's there, it's not going away. That's just generally how it works. It wouldn't surprise me if they expanded it. I mean, it really, because, right,
the
it's,
form.
so the Form 1, if you're on a P and Z board, you fill out Form 1. As a town attorney, I fill out Form 1. It wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden
Oh, expanded. it to
that
more
expanded
people.
the scope
Okay.
of Form 6 to other things, but I don't think it'll go away. I mean, maybe if there's a rash of resignations, especially from maybe the smaller municipalities, I don't know why it would matter. I mean, either you're comfortable disclosing or you're not comfortable disclosing, but we'll see what happens, and maybe if there is a huge backlash, they'll reconsider, but in my general experience, once it's there, it's generally stay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Is this all public information?
It's public information, yeah. So the numbers are public, like all your, there's no social securities or bank, all that stuff is exempt, but people will be able to look at it. And it's more public information now. The whole theory behind it is that people have the right to know where your public officials, and they should be able to see, where your sources of income and all that kind of stuff. But I think in reality, people just, want to see. But that's the theory behind it.
I have a question. There was some discussion at this past weekend at the League of Cities relative to if you have self-employment and coming to dealing with clients. There seemed to have been a requirement for such specificity that you had to actually enumerate who your clients were.
Clients, yeah.
Now, what would one do if there is a confidential relationship, let alone
That's a
perhaps
darn
an
good
attorney-client
Right.
relationship?
Well, the fact that a person's your client, generally you can't disclose any of the things that we're told, but it's a good question. Because generally I have to disclose like the major clients, major sources. So, right, you have to disclose who your major clients are.
But what is major?
I think it is defined. Yeah, 5%.
5% of total income?
I believe so, yes. 5%.
So this may really have a negative impact
For sure,
on people giving of their time for the municipality. Many times it's voluntary or a very minimal nominal compensation. And is it worth it to have that private?
Well, right. I mean, essentially, you all are public servants. You're doing a public service.
Mhm.
And, and there might be a lot of people out there who do not want to fully disclose. I'm hoping not.
Okay, well, thank you for that presentation.
You're welcome. I
and-
know I was just a
yeah.
stand-in and got to see Glenn's picture at the end. He probably would have done it better. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Town manager?
Yes, I'm going to yield some of my time. As you know, we about 18 months ago, come on up, Jeff, commenced the recertification process. Jeff had brought to my attention that we've had some regulated structures and entities kind of saying they hadn't been informed, even though we've sent certified letters. So we thought it would be appropriate to kind of show you a status or have Jeff give you a status of where we're at, what we envision happening. Again, getting to that, what is it, January or December 31st, 24, it all has to be complete. So we're about halfway into from where we started. And we have a building certified. So we have 53 regulated structures. So
Yes.
Jeff, if you could bring us up to speed as to where we're at community and what's still out there.
Not a problem at all. So the,
And I gave you I'll give you a little report that he put together, he and his team, to kind of give you a status update of each building. So you know what's going on.
absolutely. So just even quicker refresher. What's due by December 31st, 2024 is just the phase 1 report. No one's saying you have to have your whole building done by then. You have to have, at the very least, your phase 1 reports in to start the process for the restoration. Okay, so we're just waiting on simply reports. So we do have 53 right now. Dalton Place is the only one that has complied because it just happened to work out that they were in the middle of their restoration when this was passed. We started sending notifications out in December of 21, right after we passed it. We started the notification giving everyone about 1 year for compliance. At the time, it wasn't as phase 1, but we just needed to report in by that date. Right now, Villa Costa, well, right now we have one that's got their phase 1 report in, and we're waiting on them to start their restoration process. Okay, so they can get the phase 2 or a sign off. And there are 5 that have submitted reports, but they've been incomplete, whether they gave electrical or structural, but forgot the other one. There's those 5. We have 3 that have submitted structural and electrical. Those are the ones that are in review, that we're reviewing right now to go over with them. And then there's about 19 that haven't submitted the reports within a due date. However, some of those, such as Seagate, they are in the middle of their concrete restoration. So there's about 3 of them, there's about 3 of them that are currently doing their restoration now. So we technically could start getting phase 2 reports as they're doing it, but I still have to put it on there because they didn't submit everything that they were supposed to for the due date. All right. And those are the 19. So we sent out a whole bunch of reminders. And we very quickly got about 3 in immediately after we sent those out. And the only problem that we're really having, and there's about 15 of them that they're just not due yet, but they were notified. So we're in pretty good shape, other than the fact I was hoping that this would trickle in as we send them out, so that we don't have everyone thinking that they have until December 31st, and then all of a sudden I have 52 packages to review at the end of 24. So we really want to spread those out. Some of the issues that we are having, we're not having any complaints that people can't find engineers or to do the work. There was a little of that in the beginning and some concern about that, but that isn't the case. A lot of the places are contacting us, and even though we physically hand delivered to them and sent certified mail and documented the person's name that we dropped it off, they're go, well, you didn't tell us, we didn't know. That person doesn't work here anymore, or that no longer the president. It doesn't really matter because they were literally served, well, not really served, but in person, and we did a follow-up with that. But so far, so good. There's been a few reports that I've looked at that I've just rejected one this morning. Because the verbiage doesn't meet what we need. It was just like, looked like a home inspector went through the building. But other than that, I was hoping we would be further along than we are because of the due dates. And so to have 19 minus 3 that are doing the active, so we really have 16 that are just like, hey, we're not doing anything as of yet, and we are not in restoration either. So that makes it harder, because now you have to have contractors, is if everyone wants to back up to the same date, now the contractors are gonna have a harder time. Because now you're gonna take away that availability, which is why we were rolling this out over a 2-year period, slowly, giving people time. And if everyone waits to the end, it's gonna be a problem. So that's where we're at.
You want to go?
Yeah.
ahead?
I got one question, Jeff. I was listening to some seminar, and the guy who was the lawyer was trying to tell us, if you have a 40-year inspection in the last couple of years, you can use that as your milestone, and then that time would count at that date when you did your 40-year and go beyond your 7 years or 10 years, whatever, depending what side of the road you're on. Is that true?
Yeah, so we've been open to that, to reviewing, as long as the report that they give us has the verbiage that's required stating the condition of the building. We would go by the date of that inspection or the date of that report, which should be the date of the inspection, and utilize that to input into the system, and then change, if it's 2 years old and it has to be looked at every 7, then we would just move their date to 5 years from now.
Right.
So that's not, it's not like everything that you just did, it went away and it's due. You need to present the paperwork to us saying, hey, no, we did this and all this was completed. Here's the paperwork. Here's the letter from the engineer, and it meets the requirements, because we're just looking at it administratively here. That the verbiage is in there for protection, and we make the adjustment. To me, that's common sense.
Beautiful. Thank you.
How do you suggest we get the buildings who haven't done anything to comply?
Well, eventually what's going to happen is, we're just gonna have to take them in front of the code board, and they're gonna end up with the, fines. And I don't know how to push it really any further than that, unless there was a known structural issue that we felt the building was unsafe, and we'd have to close the building down. I hope that never happens, and I hope no buildings in that kind of shape. We've had some buildings asking for extensions. And as long as you give me a reasonable explanation and you give it to me from your board on your letterhead, we've been giving extensions. We need more 60 days, we need 90 days. Could you give me till the end of the year? No problem, we're working, but I'm only doing that once. Otherwise, everyone's gonna get backed up and they're gonna create their own bottleneck with contractors at the end.
And what do you do when somebody is in the middle of construction and they can't get the construction finished in time to meet the second deadline.
Well, the second deadline is a little bit easier because the second deadline is for the phase 2 reports, and the
Right.
phase 2 reports are typically done during the construction process. So if we understand that it's an ongoing, and as long as they're coming to work every day and the permits stay active, now if they've abandoned a job and for 6 months and the permits are expired, then we have a problem. But as long as they continue to move forward and send in those reports and call us out for our inspections under the permit, we're fine. If it takes 2 years, it takes 2 years, but most contractors want to be in and want to be out so they can make more money at the next job. So they're not going to intentionally hold anything up.
Thank you.
Are there any of the 19 here that have been granted their extensions, or all these 19 are all past due? Except for the 16, sorry.
No, all of these are, they're all past due. I think 3 of them have asked for extensions that I've granted. I don't know which 3 those are.
But they're in
I
that
didn't
list
break
of
it down.
19. Okay.
Yeah, but it's gonna, they are in that list of 19. To me, technically 60, because the other 3 are doing the restoration now.
So you've hand delivered, you've certified mail. I mean, my inclination is to remind them again, but I guess your point is
did.
we've done
Yeah,
that
that's-
already. So,
And the reminders that they've missed it, we've sent out letters that, hey, you missed your deadline. I'm giving you 30 more days. And those 30 days are going by, and those letters, we're doing the same thing. I'm sending it first class mail, but we're also hand delivering them. And we're documenting the name of the person that we handed it to. I don't know what else to do other than eventually start code cases.
and typically the people you would hand it to would be the manager, right? The manager,
Correct.
it's not like you're handing it to.
Building, right, if the
uh,
building manager's not there, but the secretary's sitting there,
You get, you hand
okay,
it to
and they're
them.
behind the desk answering, there you go.
So you're getting it to the right people.
We're getting to the right people inside the building and documenting their name.
And many times I think that there is not only the supply chain problem in actually getting in the equipment that you may need, but also the professionals to give the appropriate advice. There's a wait. Most of the time, I think that certainly in my personal situation, you rely on those that you hired, the engineers, to file the report. And when the office receives, the condominium, as an example, receives notification that a date was missed, there's a call to arms, let's get on this, what's going on. So I think that the repeated reminders and that there are consequences to deal with, that people will pay attention. I don't think that if there's 19 now or 16, unless that there's going to be too many really recalcitrant owners that are going to let the dates go by and be subject to a delay, undue delay.
Glenn, do you think it would make a difference if we had these formally served by a process server?
Oh, I don't know if we need to go through all that. I'm not sure that make any difference. I mean, a process server would probably give it to the same person that Jeff's been hand delivering to.
Well,
You
it,
essentially handle it. I mean,
no, right.
have you sent to, you haven't sent to like registered agents or anything like that?
No, well, with no registered agents, because none of the buildings that I'm aware of have registered agents. They typically have their address as
The
their
address
office
is the
address.
condo.
So we're hand delivering, but if what we go by is whatever's in the appraiser's office,
Right.
that's what we go by for the
Right.
actual owner. But it's mostly the hand deliver and then the mailing to that address.
But
What-
they are all corporations. We could try to serve the registered agents or at least send them a copy of the notice.
So if we get to the point where we're calling them in front of the code enforcement board, how do we know they're going to show up to that?
We don't, but they get notified essentially the same way. They'd be getting
I-
notified.
Yeah, so I was thinking just maybe at that point, if a sheriff delivers it, it might have a little bit more impact.
Yeah, I'm
You
not
know,
sure.
it makes it real.
I'm not
as
sure they'd be
opposed
so
to-
Thrilled about that, either. The sheriff. that is.
Well, have you been experiencing a non-response after your follow-up letters?
Yes.
Have been sent a non-response
Not response, yes.
for several weeks?
Yeah, just
Okay.
no response. And then no response to the you're late. No response.
Interesting.
Yeah, so your next step is just the code enforcement
Code,
step.
yeah, per our ordinance, the next step is code enforcement.
Sometimes fines get
Right.
people moving. but-
Right. Right. I guess that's fine with me. I mean, I don't know that there's really anything, sounds like you've done a lot of reminders, a lot of, you followed the process.
We did not anticipate this,
No.
to be honest. We assumed that everybody, because not only is it our ordinance, but it's state law, and we just assumed people would follow it. We never expected to have this many who just are ignoring everything.
Yeah, neither did I, and I did speak with some people that says, well, we don't care what you said in your letter, the state statute says December 31st, 2024, and I'm like, no, we have an ordinance, you were notified. That's the one, that you have to go by. So there was some, people were like, oh, well, the state now says December 31st, so now they just assume that our notification was meaningless.
Well, I think there's legitimate confusion between the two. Because there's perhaps a 6-month differential in the notifications and the due dates, and there may have been changes in property managers and boards. So, but what you're stating is that there's no response. I can understand that there's some response, like, oops, tell me more. What did we do? What should we do? Let's make those calls, as opposed to no response. That's concerning.
I think for the October meeting, I'll have a better feeling because that'll be the 30 days that I gave all these people and we'll see what kind of response. So I think if there's time in the future, sometime in October, I'll have a better assessment. That'll give me a little over a month and it'll give these people time to either, ask for an extension or phone me up.
I would suggest the old method. That is a phone call and document the response from each of the people. And that, whether it be, oh, I didn't see it, I forgot about it, I'm not going to do it until next year, and then categorize, and then we can take action where it's appropriate. That was my suggestion.
I mean, I'm fine with the phone call. I mean, I guess that we can see, I mean, it sounds like, I don't know if you'll be kind of talking to people anyway because of these next 30 days, you think?
Yeah, we want to speak with the manager, the building manager. Elected board members come and go in these, and they could not care, not want to, but if that person has a license, so that's why we've been focusing on the manager in the building, because they're the one who has the CAM license. And, we can easily follow up with some phone calls to them again.
Okay, if it's easy enough,
Okay.
then I would be in favor of that.
Yeah, I'm surprised we have that many and I know we're doing our electrical right now and I guess we should notify you and everything else, but everywhere you go, they say do this early because you're not going to find engineers, you're not going to find in the last minute. So, I mean, that's instilled in everybody's brain. So I'm surprised you had this many. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything else, town manager?
Yeah, so, again, just kind of a prelude to our special budget meeting next week, Thursday. I believe the FOP, union will be having their vote next Tuesday, Wednesday. So we're going to be putting on your agenda to ratify that agreement. We've gotten indications that they shouldn't have any, issues with the contract and that should be ratified. We'll have the healthcare approvals. With that, we may have the salary resolution. I'm working through a few things with David. Kind of where it spells out salaries for non-union, adjustments to the salary table. Since we had a lot of conversation with enjoying indices, I've referenced the Labor Bureau statistics to be the adjustment that's going to be issued for August by the BLS as kind of how we move the salary tables. Again, the salary tables don't result in money immediately to employees. It just takes those salary bands and moves them out to stay up with the cost, the rate of inflation. So that's what that is. So you'll see that in there. It's a little more complex than what we've had in the past, but at least it ties it to an indices and makes it, a rational, economic, mathematical determination on what that is. So I'm hoping to have that. I just don't know in case there's something that happens with the FOP and that blows up, we may have to rethink some strategy, but I'm hoping everything I hear is going in a great spot. Now, with that, we heard from the healthcare doing great for the bottom line because we had basically a net reduction across the board. And we had a conversation of either, lowering the millage rate and or keeping it and moving those dollars into a sinking fund. When David crunched the numbers in greater detail, there may be capacity to do both. So one, we can reduce it by 300 and two, fund a sinking fund at the same time. Because the savings were a little bit more monumental once we started. David, with this Excel spreadsheet with 15 worksheets tied together. Once we really crunched those numbers down, that initial, what we thought was like 120 to 150,000 kind of moved to, 250,000. So we might be able to do both where we could bring that millage rate down a little bit and still secure dollars for your conversation. Just giving you a heads up that David's working those numbers out and I should hope to have earlier information to you so you can start wrapping your mind around where you fall or what you want to do. So we can do both if you wanted. Because the savings is a little bit more than we initially anticipated. So that's good news, right? I'm saying it in a very serious tone, but hey, it's good news. We're saving some money. So that's what we have next week on that special meeting, along with the last read of the fire code, because the Sentinel, Sun Sentinel kind of messed with our notice. So it's a non-budgetary item, but it's going to be placed on there as well because we had to get it through. With that, that's all I have. Oh, you know what? No, I don't. I want to say thank you to you all. And I hope, I know Anita's here and I hope the residents watch this and they could be rest assured you guys get along so well. I have to reaffirm, it was great to be able to establish and expand our relationships at the conference, regardless of subject matter at that, just having those quieter moments to talk and get to know. And it was great to see you all getting along. And generally having a serious intent to protect and improve the town. I think everyone needs to know that. I think that was great to see. And I tell the story, I went into other sessions or rooms and saw the infighting amongst commissioners and complaining that Commissioner X to Commissioner, we don't have that. So that's great. And I'm excited that we're moving forward with that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, great. Well, we'll end on that positive note. At 3:18, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.